Prodigy wants to know what strategies can help beginners in FPV racing quickly overcome the steep learning curve, especially when resources are scarce and the knowledge gap is large. I beat the drum, but it's practice in the sim. All the top racers practice in the sim and in real life, but in the sim. Also, Lexi Jansen, also known as Maion High, Maionhigh, Maion High, has a video series she put out there called Train Insane. And it's basically a training program for racing. And there definitely will be people who say, well, what races has she won? And I don't know the answer to that. But I will say that, let's see, is this her Train Insane on Velocitron? Yeah. I will say that, you don't have to be a world-class racer. Like you don't have to be a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 at skill to train somebody from a 0 out of 10 to a 3 out of 10, right? Like, if I looked at, let's say that I thought I was a 5 out of 10 in terms of racing. And actually, if you look at my placement in the last racing event I did, which was RaceGow, I was typically in the 50 to 60 percentile of the leaderboard. So, okay, let's say I'm a 5 out of 10 in racing. Well, if I look at you and you're a 4 out of 10 and you say, hey, what could I do to get better? I probably, I might be like, hey, I noticed a place where you blew out a line. You know, maybe your line could have been cleaner. But, mostly I'm going to be like, I don't know, I don't have a lot to offer you. But if I look at you and you're like a 0 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10, I probably could give you enough tips to get you to like a 3 out of 10 and still feel like I wasn't doing you a disservice. So Lexi is a capable pilot and more than capable of training somebody who kind of is a beginner at racing and getting better. She has the Train Insane series and she has her FPV Academy as well. And I think that that's worth looking into. I only say that because that's one of the only organized racing tutorials that I'm aware of out there. I will also say that there's plenty of people out there who are great racing pilots who are not great instructors. And I'm not going to name names, clearly. If you have the opportunity to get trained by a great racing pilot, you should totally take it. But there's people, I would rather take lessons from a person who's a 5 or 6 out of 10 as a pilot and a 10 out of 10 as an instructor than a person who's a 10 out of 10 as a pilot and a 4 out of 10 as an instructor. And a lot of the best pilots don't necessarily know how to translate what they do into applicable skills that a beginner can take advantage from. Because either the pilot is so advanced that the things they say to do, the beginner can't even start to do them, or because they have such an innate level of skill and talent that they don't necessarily know why the things that they do work. They just know that when I do these things, I win races. But that doesn't necessarily mean they can communicate that to a person who's a beginner. So I don't think we should assume that just because somebody isn't on the leaderboard of a million races, they can't be a good instructor.
I would also just suggest that you could also just go to races, because the only way that you're ever gonna if you're getting into racing, right, that presumes that you're gonna have a place to race. So I would suggest going to races. The way, you said, maybe the top pilots are good at training or random pilots are good at training, but there's a lot of pilots that race and they all learned how to fly from nothing. So I'm sure they could give you pointers. They could tell you what you might want to buy or what they use or how they race there or how, you know what I mean? And get an idea of what's around there. Get something that they like or use, and that kind of gets you in with them. And then, I don't know, I think that's also a very good way to go, right? You're going to be racing with somebody. So once you have the basics down, then I would say maybe learn from the people who are doing it.
Yeah.
A lot of the communities are very friendly. If you go, if you ask people, they will just help you. How do you train every day? They will tell you, right? Yeah. They will, very few people are trying to hide something.
Yeah, absolutely. The number one predictor of success at racing is the number of hours you practice in the sim, I would say. And it doesn't mean that everyone who puts in hours in the sim is going to be a top racer. There is a certain amount of innate talent, ability, and some people are just going to inherently rise higher than others, even with the same amount of effort. Okay, but like, I've known multiple people who said, I want to be a good racer or a better racer. And then they just started seriously practicing, and they just worked, and they just put in every day an hour in the sim or, whatever. And then on the weekends, 3 hours at the real track with their real quads and just grinding laps. Okay. And every single one of them got substantially better. And like, one of them is Evan Turner's dad, Kevin Turner. He also races. And Kevin Turner and I used to go to races, and we were about as good as each other. We were both pretty mediocre. And we had fun. I had fun. I think he had fun too. Competing with each other, be like, oh, who's gonna be better? And then he started practicing a lot, and I didn't. And now he just whips my butt at every race. And it's like, I'm like, oh, why didn't I practice a lot? So like, if you really want to get better, there's absolutely no substitute for just get in the simulator, pick a track, and then try to get faster. And try to figure out the things you need to do to get faster. And if you find yourself plateauing, that's the point where now you shouldn't spend hours and hours riding a plateau. Like, if you hit a ceiling and you don't know how to break through the ceiling, that's when it makes sense to reach out to somebody and say, what could I be doing differently to break through this plateau, break through this ceiling, and get better? But as long as you're seeing progress, keep working. And keep putting in that time, because especially with racing, where like repeatability and predictability and so forth are so important, there's no substitute for stick time.
I just also want to say, I think it's, if you don't do stuff like this a lot, like learn new skills that take, like a racing, that's a competitive thing. It's good to remember that, like, it's way better for you to do like 30 minutes every day than it is for you to do 8 hours on a weekend.
That's probably true. Yeah,
you're going to learn that there's something about muscle memory. If you do it and then sleep and then do it and then sleep, you start to build this like extra level. I think you sort of cheat the time. That's just a suggestion I would give you, is just try to do it every day for as long as you can, short time.
Yeah. But be aware of when your practice is not producing results anymore.
For sure.
Because there does come a point where either you're burned out or you've hit a skill ceiling and you need to do something differently to break through. And when you hit that point, continuing to grind is potentially just going to burn up your energy and time without giving you progress. So that's why I think racing is so interesting, because like, there are metrics. Either you're getting faster or you're not. Either you're higher in the leaderboard or you're not. And with freestyle, it's very sort of more subjective. And I think that's why racers are better pilots by and large than freestyle pilots. Here's a question.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Velocitron also lets you watch ghosts, so just don't forget that, like, if you do plateau, one of the ways you can help is watching a ghost of somebody 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds ahead of you, and watch the lines they take, and you're going to see stuff you're like, I don't even understand what happened. But if you keep watching it, look at their throttle and sticks, you can sort of start to learn a lot from that as well.
Yeah. My favorite way to progress in racing games, and I'm thinking more about like video games like auto racing simulators and so forth, is to get a ghost lap of a person who is just a few seconds faster than you. Well, maybe fractions of a second, depending on, but a person who's just a little bit faster than you, but not so much faster that they just leave you in their dust. And then follow them and see where they pull ahead of you. Like, for the first 4 turns of the race, I'm faster, but then on the 5th turn, they pull ahead, and then they leave, then I can't catch them for the rest of the race. Okay, why were they faster on the 5th turn? Did they take a different line than you? Do you just need to push harder through the turn? And then you just keep working that turn until you figure out what to do to beat them through the turn, and then you beat that ghost, and then you just pick the next ghost that's just a little bit faster than you. And I think it's a great way to progress. Yeah.